Okay, so we're doing this, guys. This is weird. This is awkward, but I'm excited.
So am I.
This is episode 0 because
It's a pilot.
Yeah, it's a pilot. So if this gets thrown away, this could emerge like 10 years down the line, and we're like, remember when we tried to start a podcast? But anyways, this is Christ and Culture, our podcast, Grace Life Church. I'm lead pastor Mike. That's Minor, Golly. We have 2 producers. I don't know if you can see them or not, but Abby and Jada are going to be helping us on this project. As I don't know where it's going to lead, but I'm just excited to just start something. Right? We all have voices, so I feel like this is something where we could share. And I think people would want to know the story of Grace Life Church. So this is where we're starting, episode 0, our story. Right? So it's a long story, even though we've been in existence for 3 years, going on 4, I think.
Yeah.
So we'll just start from the beginning. Like, where did we all meet? Like, I don't know. Did y'all meet first?
Yes, we did.
No. No, we didn't.
And the reason why I say this is because I remember going to, like, on Wednesdays, like when they had church, on my old church. I remember talking to Gus.
That's not true, Minor.
Yes. The reason.
Mike and Abby and I met first.
Oh, well, I don't know.
We met Golly. We knew each other a little bit before we even got to.
I don't know.
To church before I started. We started being youth pastors because Abby would help Kevin.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sometimes singing, but technically you got to Golly's church before us. Like technically, I
Yes.
think, right?
No.
Yes. Yes.
Did-
Well,
Didn't
Minor
he-
says he did.
But didn't he start helping when you were already there, Abby?
Okay, so here's my story with Minor.
Oh, no.
It was like
It was a long time ago.
January 2018. We were youth pastors, and it was a Thursday. I think we had services on Thursdays. And then I gave like my speech of like what we're gonna do. And after, Minor comes up, and he's like, he just introduces himself, and he gives me his phone number. And I'm like, okay, this is kind of like not weird, but like unexpected. And I forgot what he said, like whatever he said. Like I don't even know if he remembers that exchange that we had. But I just remember he was the only one or the first person to like introduce himself to me.
What can I say? I wanted him to be my bro.
You should have like a business card.
Honestly, I don't remember that.
And he was like
that was so bad.
17, I think.
Yes.
He was 17.
Around that age.
And I think it was after that he started playing like for the church, like the guitar. Like I don't even think people knew he played the guitar yet.
No.
And then I think one of the days he's like, oh, I play guitar. And then he ended up being like really good at the guitar. So then he just started playing, and he's never stopped since, right? And and then Abby and Golly would kind of work together or sing together. I don't know how y'all
We were
how
calling.
musicians say it every so often. So that's kind of how they met, and then we became youth pastors. So we started working together a lot. Like so, we kind of all met around 5 years ago, 6 years ago, kind of like around that time. And then all of a sudden in 2019, we just started Grace Life Church. And that was an experience in itself. And it kind of like abruptly we kind of started it, or not we, like Pastor Kevin started it. And let's just talk about that transition a little bit. And I'll let Golly start, like how her transition was. I know for us, like we had a special meeting with Pastor Kevin. And so you could talk a little bit about your experience in the decision of starting or helping start Grace Life Church.
Well, let's see. I met Kevin when I was, 18. So like, wow, almost 10 years ago. I don't think I've ever like processed how long it's been. And he started off being my youth pastor. And so he was the one that just kind of like pushed me, I guess, into learning and kind kind of figuring out what a ministry was, because before that, I didn't really know what it was like to be a part of a youth group or be, I guess, like involved in church. And he kind of took the reins on showing me that, and I guess showing me what like a pastor looked like. And then, so in 2018, I would have been
5 years, right?
5 years, so 18, 19, 23? Yeah. Yeah, and I remember one day he was just like, well, at that point we had the English ministry at our old church. So I guess that we had like a year of that?
Yeah, we did that for roughly a year before
deciding to start Grace Life. Yeah. And so working in the English ministry and the Spanish ministry with him and alongside like all of us, it just felt different. It felt different to any other church that I had been a part of. And so, yeah, one day he was just like, I need to talk to you. And I was like, okay. I thought I was in trouble or something. I didn't know what it was because it seemed pretty serious. And yeah, he was basically like, we're going to start our own church. And I was like, okay. Like, when? Like, when, where, like, how? And it wasn't really like even a contemplation of like, am I going to move with him or am I going to help him start it? It was just kind of like, I don't know, like innate. It was just like natural. Like, it was like, okay, just like
more assumed that
just let me know like what's going to happen. And yeah, it was just.
Did any part of you like, because the church you were at was kind of like your, how long were you at that church for?
Since I was 14, so 10 years. Yeah.
So, was any part of you like struggling to like take such a drastic step?
I don't think so, because like and like it's no disrespect or no like putting down other people or any other ministries, but just when he showed up and he kind of showed me what it was, what God's presence in a pastor looked like, and that pastor to take the step of believing in you and kind of mentoring you and teaching you what it meant, like what God's ministry, God's presence meant. It was just kind of like, yeah, like he's the one. If I'm gonna have a pastor, and I'm gonna help somebody start something, it's gonna be him. Yeah. So it wasn't really like like I said, it wasn't like a decision. It was just kind of like, okay, I'm going.
Yeah. I think it should be noted or said that kind of towards this part when Pastor Kevin decided to start his own church, kind of, like you said, we were working on the English ministry, with the English ministry. Me and my wife, Abby, came over strictly to help on with that endeavor with Pastor Kevin, also to help with as youth pastors. But at that point, the ministry was being basically shut down by the senior leadership. So it's not like we just started, let's just pick up and leave. Yeah. No, we were kind of like not forced out, but we kind of had to make a decision of what we wanted to do and what we, decided to do. And that's kind of the situation. We just didn't all right, let's just make our own church.
I think it was more of like also we were being put down in a sense, and then us just wanting more in our spiritual lives. Like, we can't grow that much in this place, so what are we going to do in order to grow? Yeah. Just period, like grow in every sense. So yeah.
And it's nothing bad with our old church, but it's just like it was just situational more than anything. And, this is what God had planned for us. And, we felt we were, and you talked about how there was no indecision. Like, honestly, from our point of view, there was a lot of indecision for us because my concern was, and it's kind of funny how it all worked out, or not funny, but just like odd, is like, I remember we had a meeting with Pastor Kevin, and I was like, okay, like, we'll do it, but I don't want you to like leave, like do something else and like leave us here, like just manning for ourselves, because that was kind of the concern when he said he was starting a new church. And we're like, oh, what do we do? Like, do we stay at this church? Do we follow Kevin? And that was the one thing I always told Kevin. I was like, all right, I'm going to help you, but just don't leave me by myself, right? Don't, go out and take another job and then, we're back to square one. Yeah. And, that was our agreement the whole time, because, I always wanted to help Pastor Kevin. I never wanted to like, do my own thing, especially in ministry. But, it's just how things work out. And I don't know what Minor's point of view was during all that stuff, because Minor was also at our church. And I don't know if he has, we've never really talked about it. I've never really asked him. But I don't know if you have any detail, like, did Pastor Kevin, he talked to you, right?
He did talk to me. It was a while back. Don't really remember quite much about it, but he did talk to me about like, hey, like, this is a new thing that's gonna happen, and do you want to be a part of it? I know I did like show it up like after what occurred, but yeah, like he did show up to me. He did ask me like, hey, or not ask me, but he told me what was gonna happen. Yeah.
Yeah, and you're young, obviously, right? You're the youngest, so you were around like 19 and 20 when all this was happening.
Yes, around that age. Yeah.
So like you were fresh out of high school, and you were in college or transitioning to college at some point.
Yeah, I don't really remember, but I think I was going in college and working at the same time. But yeah, around.
So, and also like, you have your entire story, but how did because for those that don't know, Minor stayed.
Yeah.
And that, like, this is not to like anything about Minor, but what was your point of view from that? Like, because you had an entire point of view as we were preparing to launch a church. You were like, you like for.
You still helping.
Yeah, you were still in like in the old perspective.
Involved, yeah.
So how was that perspective of like, a few people starting a whole different thing?
A few people starting a whole thing. Well, like to tell like a little bit about my story is like I was trying to look for a church in church. Well, being a part of that old church, like I was like, thank God, like I'm here, and like this happening, like going to a new church. I was like, oh man, like I've been to so many churches, like, and that's why like I kind of stayed behind to help them out, because I was like not understanding what God wanted to do in my life and like what was the next step. So like seeing like Pastor Kevin, like. At moments, I do regret like not moving with y'all because, of course, of what happened. And well, like all these things were just happening so quick that I was just there like, oh man, like what do I do? Like, it's like I had to pray and pray consistently about that.
It was a quick turnaround, like in the grand spec of things, because I think he told us, or he like decided that in like April, May.
Yeah, it was like April.
And then by July, we were already having like our.
Yeah, so we were having meetings, right? And so we kind of transitioned to that, and maybe Minor doesn't even know these stories, but like we had. So in July, I think we started meetings.
We started service at your mom's house.
Yeah, we were at my mom's house. We had, I think, at your parents' house a couple times or once. And then Pastor Kevin and Nikki were looking for a place to have church. The options were like somebody's like farmhouse or like barn area. I don't even remember. Another church's sanctuary, but that church I think was in like Elsa or Mercedes, so it was kind of like out of the way a little bit. And then I honestly don't even know the process of how Pastor Kevin got this lease for this place that we're currently at. But I just know one day he's like, oh, we got a place. Like, and it was extremely small. I think like comfortably like 20 people could fit in there, but like we could squeeze like 40. But it was extremely small. For those that have been to our church, it's like basically the altar area was our church, like the entire thing. And I just remember the meetings, like I kind of really didn't have expectations for what was it going to be or turn into. It just, like Ali said, everything was just going so quickly that I don't remember. Do you remember the date that we actually wanted to start the church? I don't remember. But I think it was like later. But for some reason, we just started August because Pastor Karen and Nikki were like, well, we'll just start. We already got our place.
No, so what happened? We were going to start in August. I think that was like our set date. But we had like I think we got the keys like a week early. And we're like, well, we're already here, so might as well just start. So I think unofficially we started a week early, but officially we started in August.
Okay, that's what it was. I remember it was something like that, but
yeah, but that's still like super quick because it was from like May, June, July, and in August we already had a place.
Yeah, so like it was like 3 or 4 months, and we went from serving in one ministry to starting our own, and it was difficult. I would imagine. I honestly don't even remember because of everything that happened between now and then. But I just know like it was hard, and it kind of wasn't hard because I feel like the English ministry pretty like much trained us for this, if that makes any sense. And we kind of didn't know what we were doing, but we just knew that we would just follow the directions of Pastor Kevin, and that's one of the things that I liked about him because he was the one that went to Bible college. He knew everything, not everything, obviously, right? But at least me, I thought he had the answer for everything. And basically, I would just fill in the gaps, right? And for those that don't know, he was my younger brother, and I just, helped whenever he needed, right? I would vacuum if church needed vacuuming. I would, not just vacuuming, obviously, right? Like that's the only thing that comes to mind. I was a youth pastor, obviously, right? We did host a youth camp successfully, and it was so quick that we were planning our second youth camp, and then the next week it was canceled, and we were visiting other churches. It was just that's an entire story in its own. But I don't know if we're missing anything from y'all's point of view, producers. I don't know. It was just a lot. I think it would be interesting to hear Jaida's point of view, actually. I'm sorry.
No, it's okay.
Because Jaida was...
Oh, jeez.
She was a teenager, right? So she was like 16 or 15 when all this happened.
I had just turned 15.
Yeah. So you could explain your experience.
I mean, there's not really much to say because what happened to me was kind of was happening to Gali because it was like we're sisters. So
yeah. So what happened was Kevin spoke to me, and then he spoke to my parents, and my parents don't speak English, so. And Kevin only spoke English. But it was the same thing with my parents. Like, they were like, we don't know what's going to happen. We don't know where this is going to, like, end up or how this is going to end up or what it's going to look like. But I think it was the same. Like, what I felt was the same thing they were feeling. And I think that we all took that as, like, God is in this because they wouldn't leave a place where they were serving, where they were, I guess you could say, comfortable in, unless it was like a family decision. Yeah, and it was easy, and it was just like natural.
Yeah.
And I think Kevin knew that because when I had my meeting and like we ended, he was like, "And I need you to make a logo for the church." so I think he kind of knew, or it was all God's plan because that's the only way and the only reason that we would leave such a comfortable place to start something uncomfortable and that we didn't really know where it was going to head.
Yeah, and that naming process was pretty funny. There's a lot of stories, but who came up with Grace Life? Was it Kevin?
I think so. I think it was him, yeah.
Yeah, I remember he had a list of names and different logos. Like, I think it would be fun to look back at like logos that didn't make the cut. I don't even know if you still have them.
I don't have them.
But yeah, I remember one logo was like, we could just do the Hillsong font. I think there's a church in the valley, like no shade, that does that, like that has literally the Hillsong font.
I think there's only so many logos you can come up with.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
But let's transition again, and we have basically 3 phases of our church. We have the launch of our church, and then we have the traumatic event of our church, and we have the post-traumatic event. So the traumatic event, of those that don't know the story, Pastor Kevin was in a fatal car accident in October, 3 months after we launched Grace Life Church. He was in an accident. He didn't make it, obviously. And, it was just like shock. Like, I don't know, thinking back, like there are details that I don't even remember. Like, it was just so chaotic that day. Not only because he was our pastor, he was my brother, one of my good friends. And it was just so sudden and shocking because you wouldn't expect that a pastor of a church that was just launched would pass away or be taken.
Well, and he was also really young. He was 25.
Yeah, he was like 25 years old. So just a lot of things that we didn't expect, and it was just a lot. But I want to talk about like the surrealness of the post-accident phase of our church, because for those that don't know, we didn't miss a service. Like, it's just crazy, like when we think about it. The accident happened on the Thursday, I believe. The details are a little bit blurry. We had church that Sunday, and then I think the funeral was like Monday or Tuesday. But at least for y'all, and at this time, Minor is still connected to Pastor Kevin.
But he wasn't part of Grace Life
Yeah,
yet.
not yet.
Not yet.
But I do know, like, and he could correct me if I'm wrong, I think he was already meeting with you, like, again, right? Like,
We were supposed to meet, I believe it was Thursday morning or Wednesday morning, but it was one of those days, and I regret not meeting with him because, like, oh man, like, I remember, like, that specific day, like, we were all young, and, we're just, like, we just don't think about it much, but I should have told him, like, hey, like, let's meet up that morning, because I didn't know that was going to be the last morning or the last time I was going to see him. And he was messaging me, texting me, and just telling me, like, hey, like, let's link up, or let's meet up, let's go grab a coffee or something. And well, that hit me hard. That hit me hard because, like you were like just saying, like, the way I met Kevin was, oh man, like, I was looking for a church, the church, and I was praying so much about it. And when I met him, I was like so fired up because I met someone who was so fired of the word and just so many spiritual things about, the Bible. So I was like, wow, there's someone young. I've never met someone young who was just so fired up for the word. And I'm like, God, you just didn't bless me with a church. You blessed me with a brother. So, like, oh man, that was just amazing. But again, going back to that, like, I should have met him that morning. Yeah.
yeah, I remember him. He was telling me, he's like, oh, I'm gonna meet with Minor, and I was like, oh, that's good, because I don't think I had communication with you.
No.
Like, that's usually what happens, right? You leave the church and he's like, don't talk to anyone. But it wasn't like intentional. It was just like, I mean, we were busy, right? And I didn't, and we weren't as close back then as we were now.
As we are now.
Yeah. Because he had his own situation going on, but that's another episode.
That was after
right?
it.
That's the next episode.
But so we didn't have communication, and then I think a couple I don't know exactly when that Minor comes. And he's like, "Oh, I'm gonna start coming," and then
I think he came for the funeral or that Sunday. Right?
Yes, I
the
did.
Sunday right after the accident
Yeah.
happened, and then he just stayed here.
yeah.
Right after I heard that what happened, I just quickly was like, nah, this is it, because I was still like in question, like saying like, God, what do you want me to do? Like, do I go with Kevin or what to do? And I was like, no, like, I missed the opportunity to meet him. I'm not going to miss this opportunity to support Grace Life. So that's where, from there on, I was like, I'm staying here. And yeah, since then.
Yeah, so the accident happens, and we're going through family stuff, chaotic stuff, heartbreak, just broken. But then we also have the church that we're kind of like a family, and we just like I don't remember, but long story short, Pastor Nikki takes over as a pastor, and that entire I'll speak for myself, but that entire year she was a pastor for a year. That I just remember, like, I'm just gonna do whatever I can to help. Like I didn't know, or we didn't know how long she would be here, which is understandable, right? Because obviously,
Well, she was Kevin's wife.
yeah, Kevin's wife was Nikki, and she was going through a ton of stuff. And I always say I would never have been able to do what she did, even as just losing a brother. I don't think I could have been a pastor at that time, and I think there's a reason why she said yes to be the pastor at that time, because there was no way I could have done it, and I don't know who else could. Like, honestly, like whoever, like if anyone else would have been willing, but like that year was just so surreal, just so much like heartbreak, crying, not understanding, questioning, shaking faith, and all through that we were going through a pandemic, because the
Yeah,
accident
that's true.
happens in October. We have a couple months to get on our feet, and then in March, the entire world shuts down. And I think that kind of helped a little bit, at least from my point of view. It kind of helped us slow down a little bit, and really not focus on the church as much. And it sounds kind of weird, but like we were able to do online services where, we didn't have to manage a lot of people and just come in, do our thing, send out the recording, and it allowed us to heal at home a little bit. But that entire thing was just so crazy that I don't know how Grace Life Church is still like together,
Yeah.
because that is such a traumatic event that it should have like shut us down, honestly. Like, I just don't know how we were able to make it through. But at least from my experience, from a family perspective and church, it was just so surreal. Like, there are things I don't remember doing. There are things I don't remember saying. And I don't know, like, it was just...
I think, like, it's so, like, just looking, like, if you were to write our story down, like, our timeline, and, like, write it down, you would look at it and be like, that church is not gonna, like, they'll be closed in a year. Yeah. And I think that's, like, you can tell and you can see that God is here. Like, God is gonna do something with us, and God is doing something with us, but... like, there's still so much more to come, because like you said, like, if we were to look from the outside in to what happened at Grace Life, you would be like, I don't know how they're still there, because even through the accident, through the pandemic, we never ever missed a service. Yeah. Like, we always had a live service, or we pre-recorded something and it would go live on Sunday. Like, we always were here, regardless of how many people are here, how many, like, even if it was like 2 of us or like 3 of us, we were still here. But I think that, like, that's the major evidence and the major, like, reason, like, that you can tell that God is here, because it's only because of him that we're even, like, able to do this podcast. And, like, it's so crazy, because I think, like, after the accident, I didn't really think, like, oh, we're just gonna stop Grace Life. I don't know if you guys thought that, or like if you thought that.
The minor was really gonna get started.
Yeah, minor was really gonna start coming, but I don't know if you guys as
I
family.
honestly thought it was on the table, like, to be full disclosure, just because of the circumstances. Like, I didn't really think about it, but I thought I wouldn't.
It's
like,
a possibility.
Yeah, like, it was something that could have happened, but didn't.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
I was fired up because I mean, from my perspective, I was just here like, man, like my brother left this, and it's in our hands. Well, it's in God's hands, but like it's for our responsibility to pick it up and just to move on forward. And of course, like everybody, we were all hurting, but I had faith that God like was gonna pick someone else up and just lead the church and just keep on moving forward. Like I was fired up for that, not because of like I didn't think that we're gonna not make it, but because I knew like He left it for us. Let's go. Let's keep on pressing forward.
Yeah, and I mean that's how Pastor Kevin was. Like he'd be like, no excuses. Like just keep going or like do something else. I mean, that's who his personality was. That's how he trained under him, the people under him. I was only in his ministry like 2.5 years. They were Gali was with him for 10 years, but
Now
he was also my brother, right? So like I kind of like got stuff from him there, but and the oddest thing, at least in my opinion, is like I don't know if Gali remembers or Jai or Abby, like the Sunday or two before the accident happened, we had there was a team meeting, and he had a list of like duties, and he's like, all right, Mike and Abby are the youth pastors. This person's in charge of this person, and it's just so weird. Like it happened like 2 weeks before that, and we already knew all these things because this is something we had done at the beginning, and this was 2 months later, and 2 weeks before the accident, he was like kind of like reminding everyone this is what you're supposed to do, and then the accident happens, and it's just so.
Well, even I think his last one of his last preachings was like, it was something along the lines of like. Persevering through your pain.
Yeah.
And it was like it was, I think it was just God aligning everything so that we could know that, yes, this is a hard moment. Yes, we're in pain, but God never left our side. Like God was always and is always in everything that Grace Life does.
Yeah. And I mean, it was hard, personally for me, like honestly, like I was just faking it until I could make it, because the first few months, like it was just so difficult. We would have meetings with Pastor Nikki, and then we would end up crying, like just it was just so like difficult, and like I don't know how to explain it. I do not wish that upon anyone, and it was just so difficult, but that kind of like molded us into where we are today. And like we said, or like I said, Pastor Nikki is a pastor. Minor comes on full time, not full time ministry, but starts coming all the time now. Then we start developing relationship, and we do Zoom. Everything's on Zoom. We have Bible studies on Zoom. We have meetings on Zoom. And then the pandemic ends, right? Or not ends, but like people start coming back to church and like going out. I think we reopened in August, so we were closed for like about 3 months, I think, if I'm not mistaken, or July. I don't remember exactly. And then during the pandemic, we expanded as a church. We knocked down walls and redid our room,
Our place.
right? Yeah, our place. And that's our story up until then. The church grew. Unfortunately, it took, the loss of Pastor Kevin, and our church grew from that event. And it's unfortunate, but like we talked about, it's something that had to happen. And is there anything that's sticking out from that pandemic era, from 2020?
I think the biggest thing was that we just expanded our place because we didn't fit in our little
room. It was so
room.
small. It was like I don't even know, like very, very small, like a doctor's room, like basically small. And then Minor joins, and Minor says he was fired up, but I don't know, like I was kind of like out of it. I remember Minor coming, and I just don't remember like some stuff that took place in 2020.
Yeah. I mean, I was like fired up, like not like saying like, oh, let's do it. Like, I was fired up. Like,
I get you. Yeah, I get you. Like you're excited to like
To keep on pushing forward.
Yeah. And then all that happens, and then there's another transition that takes place, right? Pastor Nikki decides that she's gonna move back home, and then we're like, okay, that's great for her, right? She needed that. She found her healing in moving home and her peace in that. It was gonna happen, at some point. At least I didn't expect it to happen so quickly. One day she's like, what would y'all do if I moved? And that's the first time it like hit me, like, oh, this is like a thing that might happen soon. And then, long story short, we have meetings upon meetings upon meetings, figuring out what we're going to do about the pastorship. There were options on the table to leave the church with no pastor, to try to find an outside one. And then finally, for long story short, the agreement was I was going to be the pastor, which I never thought would happen. Like
You never really thought
like
that?
from when we started Grace Life Church, I never thought about it, honestly.
I always thought, since when the accident happened, I always figured like Mike's next.
Even when the accident happened, it never crossed my mind. Like people would tell me at the funeral, like, which is a random thing. Like people are like, "I'm sorry for your loss. You're next, son." I was like, "What?" I was like, "What?"
Oh man.
But the funny thing is that they would tell me, and then my older brother the same thing. So I was like, "Wait, something's going on here." But
It's confusing.
like I never thought about it. Like I never, like I said, like probably I just envisioned like, probably it was going to close down. Like I just never thought of it. And then when Pastor Nikki became the pastor, even then I never thought, oh, I'm going to be the next pastor. It wasn't until a couple months before it actually happened when I felt like just so in my spirit that, oh, I need to be the next. Like I want it. Like not just for that, it's just I want to, I don't know. There was just something in my spirit that just said like, you need to fight for what you feel or what God is telling you. Yeah. And that's what I did. Like I fought for it, and not literally fight, right? But I just like made it known that I'm very soft-spoken, I'm very passive, but I made it known that I feel like God wants, or not wants, I don't know how you say it, God has ordained me to be the next pastor of Grace Life Church. And it's something that I didn't think until the few months before it actually happened, which is scary because my wife was like, do you know what that means? And I'm like, I kind of do and I kind of don't. Like, I don't know. Like, I just feel like this like has to happen. Like, it's the only way. And it's funny because when I was younger, I was like prophesied, oh, you're going to be a pastor, but I never really thought much of it. And then when everything happened, it's just crazy. And I shared this, I think in Bible study a couple of weeks ago. I was like, I was never ordained or supposed to plant this church, but I was always supposed to pastor this church. And it's unfortunate the way it came about, but I just feel like this was always supposed to happen.
Wait, and then
Go for it.
sorry, because also sorry, we were prophesied to before Grace Life even came about, and before it was like it was already an idea, but
Yeah, that happened in May.
it happened in May, and we had just left the church we were serving because we were trying to help Kevin with like, let's scout and let's do all these things, to go and research and whatever. That was what we were making up in our mind. And then God prophesies to us through Joel, Pastor Joel, that helps us in Spanish services. And that is also another link of relationship because we would never...
I don't even know how we crossed paths with him.
Well, through my parents, but...
Yeah, but like, it's just... Yeah, we were looking for some advice. Like, I didn't even want to get prophesied to.
No, they were
We were just looking for
us
advice
because we wanted clarity and we wanted God to
Yeah.
show us what we were going to do.
We wanted God to tell us, like, this is what you're supposed to do. And he didn't say it exactly, but he kind of said it so much. But
he described everything that we know. And we have the recording because that's their thing. Like, when you get prophesied to, record it because you're in the moment, you're going to be like, yes, yes, yes. And then afterward, you're going to be like, wait, what did he say? So we recorded it, and we kept it a secret even from Kevin. until maybe I don't remember ever having a conversation with him. We told Nikki when she was already ready to leave, but we kept it in our heart because we were like, whatever God's gonna do, like let it be Him, not us, and not us forcing it, and not us making this our future or whatever, because that's not what the point is. Like the point is to trust God in the process, and He opened the door. And then when Mike finally realized, like through the Holy Spirit, one afternoon, a Saturday afternoon, for me it was like, call Nikki right away, like this needs to be told to you, like just so you know. And we had already had to talk, like, do you know what this means? What are we getting ourselves into, type of thing or whatever. And for me it was just more encouraging Mike, because he's not that kind of person. And so I just wanted him to know, like, if you feel God moving in you for the first time ever in such clarity, like, let's do this. And then, what's it called? But yeah, we were prophesied to.
Yeah, so we were prophesied in May, I think, or June. And then we joined Kevin, but it was just, the prophecy was so specific.
Yes.
Like,
to the people,
yeah.
to the style, and we were like, the whole time, we were like, that's Kevin. That he's the pastor. He's the one with it was the young adults, and you're gonna, touch lives, and you're gonna have all these. I don't remember the word for word, but it was everything we have at Grace Life Church through Pastor Kevin. So we were like, yeah, sure, like okay, and
yeah. It was just so surreal, but through that experience, but yeah, that's a whole nother story as well. Prophecy. Pretty sure we've all been prophesied, but at the time we didn't understand, but it became very clear when everything happened. Then I was installed as a pastor in 2020, late 2020, and now we're here, 2023, right? And last thing here before we close our origin story, I feel like Minor hasn't talked any.
I know.
Right?
because he was.
I know.
I'm listening to everybody right
Yeah.
now, man.
So
Very interesting.
like and like I don't even know like if you can answer this question, but like
No.
what has changed from when we started Grace Life Church to now?
Oh man, lots. So much, man. Like, well, going to what happened with Kevin, and then after with Nikki.
Well, let me ask you this question first before you answer
Yes.
that question. Did you follow what we were doing when you weren't like with us yet?
What do you mean?
Like, would you
specifically?
like see what we were doing on like Facebook and stuff like that, or?
Oh, that was a while back.
Yeah, it's 2019.
I think I did.
You were still close with Gus.
I was still close with
Oh,
Gus.
yeah,
Yes,
so
I was
Gus
talking a
big
lot with
part of
Gus.
what we were doing.
Yeah, so he would tell me like specifically, like, he would invite me like, hey man, like whenever you want to help out, like just to pass by, and well, he would tell me stuff about church, and I think you guys made like a Facebook page, right?
Yeah, we had a Facebook.
That was like the first thing we did.
Yeah.
Right. So I think I liked it since then.
Hopefully.
Yeah, I'm sure I did
go check
because
if you like it
I would
right
see
now.
his videos, like his
Yeah.
preachings and everything, like y'all would just post.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember that.
It's different. We started. I mean, it's not that different, right? But
No, well, of course, a lot of things have changed, but I
Yeah.
mean, like now, like I don't know, it just feels normal. Like it feels
yeah,
like we're just good, I guess. I don't know.
Good, I guess.
golly, I don't know. Has things changed? Like I can't say.
I don't know. Well, yes, things have changed, but like, I don't know. It's so like surreal to think about it because we're not, or we didn't come to a church that was already established.
Yeah.
So a lot of the things that we're doing, or a lot of the ideas that we have, or whatnot, they might work, they might not work, but they're brand new to us. So that's why it seems like we've been doing it for a long time, because like we're just starting something new, or we started something brand new. So I think sometimes like I think about it and I'm like, wow, like we have so much work to do. But then like you said, we're gonna only like complete our 4th year of being in existence. So like if you like compare that to I don't know, like to mega churches and stuff who have been established for years. Like they started small,
Yeah.
like us. So yeah, a lot of things have changed. A lot of people have left. A lot of people have came, but that's just part of God's plan. You know, like people are gonna come, people are gonna go, but I believe that the people who are coming and who are gonna come are just gonna help us grow our ministry and help us grow, like individually, spiritually, and just allow us to reach more people and just expand.
Yeah, obviously, right, I feel it's changed because personally I switched, from being from behind in a way to say like behind the camera to in front of the camera. And that's been a difficult process for me. So this is my third year. Yeah, I started my third year. So it's been difficult. I still feel like I'm finding my voice and stuff, but I heard a preacher say a pastor doesn't find his voice until after 5 years preaching. And I'm like, well, still got 3 years to go before I find my footing. But it's just different. From when we started Grace Life Church, we always wanted a different culture. A lot of us grew up in traditional churches, right? And there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with traditional churches, but it's just different. And part of the reason why we started this podcast, Christ and Culture, is to try to merge Christ and culture, or try to find an understanding between Christ and culture. Because whether we want to realize it or not, we are Christians living in a world that we just don't fit in. And there's difficulty in finding where we fit. And I feel like as a church, we started 4 years ago with no following, right? So it wasn't this thing where, okay, we have 20, 30 people to start. Like, that's our ground zero. No, we had like 8 people, right? And the funny thing is, like, half of them are no longer with us, right? Not for bad thing. It's just like, life happens, right? And 3 pastors in 4 years is not ideal, right? It's not great. It's not bad either because we didn't choose it. But I feel like that has, whether it's willingly or not, has impacted our growth, honestly. Because where there's no stabilization, there's no growth. So we've been stabilized for 2 years, and we've seen growth a little bit, and we want to continue seeing that. But I feel like as we continue to set our culture, is where we're going to see the biggest differences. And me and Kevin shared a lot of similarities, but we are 2 very different leaders. 2 very different. I could say that myself. And and I'm just excited for where this is going. It's entirely different. Like, I just don't know, but I can say, like, I am in the best place I've ever been mentally, spiritually, even physically, right? Because last year I did lose 40 pounds, right? So you probably can't see it on the camera, but let me remind you, the camera adds 10 pounds, right? So
You lost 50 pounds.
yeah. So I lost 50,
Oh,
and we're still in the process. We're still in the process. I'm still not a finished product yet, but I'm just excited for where this is going. Episode 0, Origin, right? We
Yeah.
could write a book. Who's gonna write the book one day?
Come on now.
I don't write.
We'll
I'll
make
draw
a
the
movie.
picture. I'll draw the cover for it.
Yeah, we'll make a movie, and Minor will be the leading man. You'll play
Yeah.
Pastor Kevin.
Yeah. I'll
Yeah,
play
they
it.
look totally the same.
Yeah.
Right.
But so this is episode 0, Christ and Culture. Episode 1 is going to be a lot different. It's going to be more loose, a little bit more, hopefully, talking about things people want to hear about, right? Questions people want answered. And I'm just excited, but we needed to tell this story. And maybe we didn't tell it as eloquent as someone that went through it is going to be like, oh, you forgot about this, you forgot about that. And
Yeah.
we probably did. But this is the story of Grace Life Church, and I'm excited to see what the next few chapters have. And, I'm excited to go with that with you, to go through that with y'all. And And I don't know, if you guys want to add something as we close
Tune
here?
in.
Tune in. Like and subscribe.
Yes.
Right? That's what people say on podcasts. Right?
Tune
like,
in.
Follow us, like
and
us.
subscribe. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram.
Twitter. We have Twitter, but we don't really use it.
Yeah, Instagram.
But we will if people follow
and,
us. Yeah.
Facebook, right? Like
We have a
Facebook.
TikTok, but maybe
If you saw
it'll
this video
grow.
and you're like, I really want to come to this church, we have services Sundays at 10:30 a.m. and we have Bible studies on most Wednesdays, right?
At
Sometimes
7 p.m.
At 7 p.m. So, yeah, we'll just close it.